Hello, everyone. Happy July. I hope that you all had a wonderful 4th this week and we're able to enjoy, there we go, the holiday and, that you're enjoying this summer so far. I apologize that I wasn't able to do a live on Wednesday, kind of the holiday. We were on vacation and things just kind of compiled. So Friday, I figured, Friday would probably be a better day for everyone. So I hope that you all had a very lovely 4th of July. So today's topic, I'm just going to dive right in so that we can get to it because it was meant to be a little bit of a shorter training, and we all know how that goes. Um, I am just excited to get into the details. Let me just see though. Okay, it looks like things are working. Perfect. Yes. Okay, so YouTube is working. And let me just look and see. Yep, looks like Facebook is working. All right, perfect. So um, if anyone is on here, feel free to say hi, leave a comment on what was one of your favorite things that you did for the 4th, or like a good memory that you had. I would love to know. I was with family the whole time, so it was wonderful being able to be with the family. We didn't see the fireworks this year. We were all in bed. So that kind of shows where we were this week. There's been a lot of traveling lately. So, yeah, we were all very tired. Okay, but I digress again. Today's topic is going to be on molds and mycotoxins. And I would love to know, have you heard of mycotoxins before? Has any doctor ever talked to you about molds or mycotoxins? Or has that ever come up in thought on, have you been exposed previously to any molds or mycotoxins? Have you had any issues with it that you're aware of? Again, comment below. I'd love to hear. We're going to jump into it and you're going to find out that it's very common. So, last Wednesday I discussed caffeine and coffee and how they could be worsening your symptoms. And during the training, when I was mentioning coffee, I brought up that it's a potential source of mycotoxins or molds. And exposure to them. So today I'm briefly going to go over mycotoxins and molds and how they can be a large underlying root cause for fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, even other conditions and autoimmune conditions. Molds and mycotoxins, man, they are a tricky one and not too fun to deal with. So let's dive in first with, what are mycotoxins? So I know that I went over this last Wednesday, but we're going to do a little refresher, dive a little deeper. So mycotoxins are toxic compounds that are naturally produced by certain types of molds. So these are, various fungi. Molds that can produce mycotoxins grow on numerous foodstuffs such as cereals, dried fruits, even fresh fruits, nuts and spices, coffee, various seeds, and bulk foods too. So, those foods that we get in the bins that help us save money. A lot of times these mycotoxins can start to show up there. So the growth can occur either before harvest or after harvest, during storage, on or in the food itself, under warm, damp, and humid conditions. Those are just great growth environments for these molds and mycotoxins. Most mycotoxins are chemically stable and survive food processing. So they are very resilient, which is what makes these little buggers so hard to get rid of, too. And you can't really just kill them by heating them up, unfortunately. So we have various protocols to help get rid of these little guys. There are several hundred different mycotoxins that have been identified, but really there are, the most commonly observed, and there's about like a dozen of them. But the top ones that are really, really, really toxic for us, and we found to see huge problems with, are aflatoxins, ochratoxin, A pollen, fumonisins, there we go, zearalenone. These ones are tongue twisters for me, and nivalenol or deoxynivalenol. Mycotoxins appear in the food chain as a result of mold infection on crops, both before and after harvest. Again, it can happen after processing too, and maybe they're sitting in a damp storage area, humid condition, and the mold growth starts to happen then too. Exposure can happen either directly by eating the infected food, so you're consuming that food yourself, or indirectly from animals that are fed contaminated feed. And particularly, we will then get that from the milk of the animal. So, unfortunately, mold is incredibly common and needs to be on the mind of everyone. It's found in the air, damp or water damaged buildings. I know I only really just mentioned food right now, but obviously, damaged buildings, damp buildings, buildings that have had mold, black mold, um, air particles, and obviously then the food you eat too. Various cars, there are different ways that you can get exposures to these molds. You come across mold inside and outside. It can travel with you, so it can attach to things like your clothing, your shoes, your pets, your reusable grocery bags. Think of your washing machines, and if you don't clean them regularly, mold can start to form there. It can get in on your clothing, and then you're wearing it, and you're just spreading it all over. So it means it can come home with you from just about anywhere, and and if it ends up somewhere even slightly damp or humid, it will grow and multiply. So we start to see issues, and these molds then produce the mycotoxins as their toxin byproduct. So, mycotoxins that are commonly found in food. We're just going to go over a few of them. So, according to the World Health Organization, let, let this be known that this is on the World Health Organization website. Um, Mycotoxins are a problem, but the effects of some foodborne mycotoxins are acute with symptoms of severe illness, appearing quickly after consumption of food products contaminated with mycotoxins. So, other mycotoxins occurring in food have been linked to long-term health effects or long-term effects on your health, including the induction of cancers and immune deficiency. Of the several hundred mycotoxins identified, about a dozen have gained the most attention due to their effects on human health and even animal health and their occurrences in food. So, looking at aflatoxins. So, among the most poisonous, and they are among the most poisonous, words are really hard today, I apologize, and are produced by certain molds, Aspergillus flavus and Aspergillus parasiticus. And these are grown in soil, and you can find it in decaying vegetation. You can find it in hay and grains. Hello, Western diet. We are full of grains. Our soils are not that great. So you can only imagine the exposure that we are giving. And this needs to be highlighted. Crops frequently affected include cereal grains like corn, sorghum, wheat, and rice. Oil seeds, think of soybean, peanut, sunflower, and cotton seeds. Look at how much soybean is in our foods. Look at how much wheat, corn, just the oil seeds in general, cotton seeds. Like, we are inundated with all of these foodstuffs, and these are ones that hold the most toxins too. So you've likely had exposure to mold and mycotoxins, is what I'm trying to get at. Spices like chili peppers, black peppers, coriander, turmeric, and ginger, and tree nuts like pistachio, almond, walnut, coconut, and Brazil nut. So the biggest thing is making sure that you are also buying quality food products where they are testing their foods for mycotoxins. They have clean soil. They have clean crops that haven't been contaminated. We want to be very aware of where we are getting our food, and how well those crops and the vegetation, all of that is being taken care of. How great is the soil? So we want to make sure that we're getting high quality stuff as much as we can. So aflatoxin can also be found in the milk of animals that are fed contaminated feed, which unfortunately a lot of animals are fed contaminated feed. And it's in the form of aflatoxin M1. So large doses of aflatoxins can lead to acute poisoning, which we call aflatoxicosis, and can be life-threatening via damage to the liver. So our livers, try to process these toxins, and it gets inundated, and eventually our liver starts to shut down, become too overburdened, and we have issues and damage that occurs. So these mycotoxins can damage DNA as well, so they're considered genotoxic. and can lead to cancer too, specifically liver cancer in humans. So ochratoxin A is produced by several species of Aspergillus and Penicillium and is a common food contaminating mycotoxin. So cereals and cereal products, coffee beans, dry vine fruits, wine and grape juices, spices, licorice. These are all commonly the common foods that are filled with these mycotoxins or ochratoxin A. They're formed during the storage of crops and can lead to kidney damage and may have effects on fetal development and on the immune system as well. So patulin is a mycotoxin produced by a variety of molds, particularly Aspergillus. As you can see, this is a common mold, right, that we're finding on foods and crops. Penicillium, same with penicillium, and Bisoclamus, often found in rotting apples and apple products, and can also occur in various moldy fruits, grains, and other foods as well. So patulin, the major dietary sources, though, that you find this mold or mycotoxin are apples and apple juice made from the affected fruit. Acute symptoms in animals include liver, spleen, and kidney damage and toxicity to the immune system. For humans, we can see more of the nausea, the GI disturbances, vomiting. But it's also considered to be genotoxic too, which means, damaging to your DNA. So then there is Fusarium fungi. It's common to the soil and produce a range of different toxins, including trichothecenes, like deoxynivalenol or DON, or nivalenol, which is NIV, T2 and HT2 toxins, and then zearalenone, which is also called Zen for short, and then fumonisins. So these various mycotoxins occur on a variety of different cereal crops as well. Different fusarium toxins are associated with certain types of cereal. So DON and Zen are often associated with wheat. T2 and HT2 toxins are often associated with oats, and fumonisins are often associated with corn. So these trichothecenes can be acutely toxic to humans, causing rapid irritation to the skin or intestinal mucosa, and can lead to diarrhea. Zen has been shown to have hormonal estrogenic effects and can cause infertility at high intakes. And we particularly see this in animals, especially pigs. And fumonisins have been related to esophageal cancer in humans and to liver and kidney toxicity in animals. So again, the animals that are being fed and having these toxins can also be delivered to us as well through the animals. So that's why I'm also bringing up animals. Symptoms and how mycotoxins can damage your health. So exposure to mold can cause many different symptoms, including fatigue, cough, shortness of breath, fever, headache, joint pain, memory problems, dizziness, sinus infections, wheezing, trouble concentrating, sensitivity to light, skin rash, digestive problems. And overall, these toxins can suppress or damage your immune system and make you more vulnerable to other illnesses. So if your immune system is already compromised, like us here battling fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, autoimmune conditions, or even another chronic disease or cancer, these mycotoxins then take advantage of this low and compromised immune system that we already have. So, it's just another compounding factor on top of this, and we can get really, really sick. So, mycotoxins are sneaky and can actually get into your bloodstream and circulate throughout your body. So, this is different in comparison to mold exposure. So, when you have mold and are exposed to mold itself, it cannot necessarily enter your bloodstream, but it can hang around and colonize in like your nasal or your nostrils and your lungs. So it can still accumulate, but it cannot get into the bloodstream like it does, like mycotoxins do. Mycotoxins can also cause lung inflammation that can make it harder to breathe. They disrupt your gut health by reducing beneficial bacteria and encouraging pathogens. And they can trigger chronic fatigue syndrome. So, in fact, there was a study that was done in 2013 and published research that showed that of 112 patients with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, 92% of them tested positive in a urine test for mycotoxins. So, a lot of people that were experiencing the fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, the onset likely came or, was compounded by these mycotoxins. So these various symptoms that we can have can be more due to underlying mold exposures and mycotoxins in our body. And once we clear that out, we can start to see, symptoms really improving for people. So that's why I'm bringing this up, because unfortunately, a lot of us are walking around with mycotoxin issues and previous mold exposures without having any treatment. So, mycotoxins can affect brain function and cognition and can cause liver damage, including cancer. They can worsen allergy and asthma symptoms, like I mentioned, and they can trigger something called SIRS, also known as chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So, this is an inflammatory condition that's triggered by mold. So, for those with a genetic mutation, which I will get to, mold exposure morphs into SIRS, and SIRS is what links mold and fibromyalgia together. So SIRS prevents your body from removing the mycotoxins from your cells, and as a result, your immune system continually attacks the mycotoxins, but you never really get better, you only get worse because you cannot remove these toxins. Your body's unable to do it, so your body's just constantly attacking. And we all know with that increased inflammatory response of attacking our system and the various things within our system, we see a lot more symptoms arising, and we can start to get more um, issues and autoimmune conditions arising because our body just starts to go out of whack. So, not every case of fibromyalgia stems from SIRS and mold exposure, but it's likely that there is a high percentage that does. And a lot of times, mold exposures can also be linked with like candida overgrowth in the body or SIBO. And we know that that is a huge underlying issue for a lot of us as well. So, objective lab testing is how you can determine if, fibromyalgia is really stemming from SIRS. And there are specific protocols that can also help treat. So, now looking at the role of genetics, because I did bring up, a genetic predisposition. So, around 25% of people are genetically predisposed to get sick from mold exposure. So there is a test that can be done called the HLA-DR, and it can tell you if you're a part of the susceptible population. And if you are a part of this population, that means your immune system can't easily identify and get rid of mycotoxins, and it allows them to build up in the body. So even a relatively small exposure to a mycotoxin can greatly affect you. If you are not part of the 25%, it can still impact your health, especially from chronic and or intense mold exposures. Because obviously, if your body can only hit a certain threshold of like detoxing and can get overburdened by mold exposure or various toxins, and it can lead up to more of a buildup and issues within the body. So obviously, anyone can be affected from mold exposure. So, in order to make a diagnosis of, mycotoxins or exposures to mold, a urine test is the most accurate and simplest test to do for mycotoxins. However, it may not accurately reflect the toxic load unless you use a means of provoking to help the body excrete the toxin as you prepare to collect the urine specimen. So, when people do have that provocation, it helps to excrete more of those mycotoxins to help show, more of what that load is like in your body. And this is because the toxins interfere with the body's innate ability to excrete the mold toxins. So that's why you want to promote the excretion before collecting. And usually there are different ways of doing this. There are different binders that people can take, which can help excrete that mold or mycotoxins from the body before a test. But you can also take 500 milligrams of liposomal glutathione twice a day for a week. And then on that last day before the urine is collected, a lot of people will either do a sauna or a hot bath to promote sweating and then collect the urine 30 minutes after that, after getting out of the sauna or the bath. So other tests can include blood tests as well, but they are not as specific as the direct measurement of the mycotoxins in the urine. And then there comes the treating of mold and toxicity. So the first and foremost thing you want to do is remove yourself from the source, whether it's from a home, a building, a car. whatever the exposure could be. I mean, obviously, if you get it from food, get rid of that food, maybe take a break from that food. Test your environments though, like if any work buildings, see if it's possible to get that tested. There's a lot of old buildings that people are working in that have had water damage, or maybe even problems with their air filtration. Um, your car can be an issue, especially if you've gotten a used car. Maybe it's been in a flood. There's a lot of different issues and scenarios where these mold exposures can show up. Then you also want to take a specific binder, and the specific binder will bind to the specific mycotoxin to help remove it from the body. Sometimes you need to remove heavy metals and various other toxins, as well as mold and mycotoxins like to kind of stick together. You may need to take a nasal and or oral antifungal as well to eradicate the mold, and there are some herbal antifungals. Otherwise, you might need a prescription. But it all depends on the person, type of mold exposure, how long you've had that exposure for, how severe things are, to determine what treatment method will work best for you. Again, there are various methods. So that was a lot shorter than I was expecting. We didn't even hit the 30-minute mark, which is wonderful. But the takeaways that I really want you to focus on are to look at your environment, both currently and in the past. Has there been any potential for mold and mycotoxin exposure for you? Look at your current food sources. Are you getting quality foods? Have you been exposed to berries or fruits or apples or grains or something that has possibly been contaminated? And when did your symptom onset begin? Can you correlate it with, like, when you were living in a certain house, you really noticed a lot of symptoms began, and that house had some water damage, or a car, once maybe you bought a new car and symptoms began then. Just start to peel back the layers of the onion and see when you can start to highlight and pinpoint where certain onset of symptoms began. And it can start small, where maybe you noticed you had more fatigue, or you noticed more GI disturbance or nausea or headaches. You do really have to go back and think. And are there any current exposures? We need to get rid of those. Do you feel that mycotoxin testing could be beneficial for you? Maybe do an organic acids test. I do offer those. It's time to start digging, though, and getting to the root cause of your symptoms and the onset of when things began. Again, this is like pieces of a puzzle. So molds and mycotoxins and those exposures are one piece of that puzzle. We can't pinpoint and say, yes, this is the cause of it, but there can be a lot of correlation and just many environmental factors that can be a triggering aspect to your symptoms and your condition. And then things can snowball, more things can accumulate. But we need to peel back these onion layers and really dig to get to the various root causes. And unfortunately, molds and mycotoxins are a big heavy hitter when it comes to fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, autoimmune conditions, and a lot of just symptoms of feeling very poorly. So I hope that this was beneficial for you. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions. I am here to help. And yeah, I hope that you all have a fabulous Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the beginning of July. And I will see you again on Wednesday. All right, you guys take care, and until next time.